Good evening, everyone. My name is James Patrick Herman. I'm a contributor to Variety, and tonight it's my pleasure to welcome actress Allison Janney. And the fearless directing duo behind Troop Zero, Bert and Bertie.
Should we be in name order?
Yes.
Wait, swap.
Yeah. We get confused. Bert and Bertie. I'm just realizing that right now. By the way, the whole movie, I was like.
Hi.
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 I wanted to start by asking, what was it like being directed by two women for a change?
It was fantastic. I loved every minute of it.
Right answer.
More, please, more. And working with these two ladies, when I first met them, I fell in love with the script. But when I met them, I fell in love with them because they have this infectious energy and joy about everything they do, and every day on set. There wasn't one day, in spite of the unbelievable circumstances of, 185-degree heat in New Orleans, just terrible heat and crazy, and all the kids in background. And these two, always a smile, always so grateful and happy to be where they were. And that kind of kept a lot of us moving through the craziness of shooting in New Orleans in August or July. When did we shoot there? July, August? I don't know.
June.
And July. And a bit of August.
It felt like July and August. Was it June?
No, there was July as well.
Yeah, we finished on July 4th.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
God,
I had July.
Clearly I was the only one there.
I have to add, you had that wig on your head, so...
Yes, I did.
What was that
I
like?
do love wigs. I'm a girl who loves wigs, and I do. And yet, it was challenging in the heat. But there is something I will tell you just here in this room, because no one else is going to hear it. But when you're a woman of a certain age and you wear a wig, you got a wig cap, and there's a certain that happens underneath a wig cap that's
You don't
marvelous.
need that.
But it gives you it gives you something, I don't know, but it also gives you a headache around hour 4. And the heat was challenging. I believe at the end of the day I was very happy to have that taken off and get my head massaged and have a martini, and that was like, oh my Lord.
We got a call on the first day you were there. I think it was in the park, and it was like, Allison is ready to show you Miss Massey. And so we were filmed coming around to your trailer, and you opened the door for the first time as Miss Massey with your wig on. It was fabulous.
It was a good reveal, right? She's
great.
good. She's good. Wait, who was the photographer that we remember the pictures?
Curtis. William Eggleston.
Eggleston.
Yes.
Those photos. That was such a great photo, and we based Miss Massey on that.
God, you have a good memory.
Well, I couldn't remember his name exactly, but I loved finding finding that photograph and being inspired by that for the look of Miss Massey.
Yes, she's in a kind of a navy blue suit, isn't
Yes.
she, from the 60s, and her hair is literally Miss Massey's. We're going to go and find that now.
It's a great
Go and have a
photo.
look.
Eggleston.
William Eggleston.
William Eggleston photo. Yeah.
What spoke to you about Miss Massey? Why did this character really speak to you?
I mean, honestly, it was the whole movie that spoke to me. I fell in love with Christmas Flint when I read the movie, and I just wanted to be part of a movie that sent out a message like that. I felt so moved by the story, and even though I was playing a woman who was kind of the bad guy in the movie, I wanted to be part of it and find why Miss Massey was like that, and find that maybe she was perhaps more like Christmas Flint and one of those who felt like they were on the outside, and she was trying to protect them, and find a reason to make her human, and make her nuanced. But mostly it was Christmas Flint I fell in love with, and these two ladies right here, and wanted to be part of a story like that. Just thought it was magical.
What was your favorite part of the script? It's such a unique story that touches on so many different aspects, and it's written by the screenwriter of Beasts of the Southern Wild. It's such a unique movie. Which elements really, struck a chord with you?
I think just that the idea that this group of kind of misfits found a common goal, and through that common goal found strength together, and found it gave them their friendship. They found friendship through this common goal and power, and they were able to dream bigger than they ever thought they would. And the message of it was just overwhelmingly beautiful to me. And then these two, I remember talking with Bert and Bertie, and and do you remember that the first time we met, and you were talking about the how a lot of us would judge like a trailer park. We would not have great connotations of that and what that would look like, and we would feel a certain way about that. But through a kid's eyes and through a kid's lens, if you will, it's a magical place to grow up with twinkle lights and the community of people. And I just love their vision of how they wanted to tell this beautiful story. And I forgot what your question was. I totally got lost, and I just started talking. I was like, what was that? I was thinking maybe it'll come to me as I keep talking, but it didn't. I lost it.
And you quite enjoyed your experience, not just with these two, but with the animal wrangler as well. Is that right?
Okay, well, you're going to talk to these guys too, because they're. But the animal, that day, that very handsome man. Yeah. I always like to look at a handsome man, and we were filming, and I saw this handsome man, and it was just divine, and
he was very handsome.
He was so handsome. I was like, what does that guy do? Because I just kept seeing him around the perimeter when we would shoot, and I was like, what is that? What's his job?
It's true. So, and then he'd just pick up a snake.
And he was,
and
and I found out he was the animal wrangler. It's like he's keeping the snakes and the alligators away from the kids, all of us, while we were acting outside, very near the water, in the wherever, in the bayou, wherever the hell we were. I don't know. But so he was, and then I got to know him, and then I just see what he had captured during the course of the day and what he kept away from us while we were acting. And I was like, I've never been more grateful for anyone in my life. It was extraordinary how many he kept us safe from he really did. And I don't think I've ever shot in a location where, or at least I wasn't aware of an animal wrangler like that being on a set that I shot on. But he was necessary, and he was great to look at. Yeah. Yeah.
Bert and Bertie have echoed a statement I've heard many times about you being so fearless. I just wondered, were you born fearless, or was that something you learned over
time? I'm the biggest wuss on the planet. I'm so the reason I love acting is I can be as brave as I want, and the consequences aren't as great as in real life. But when you're playing a character, you're on stage, and I can go so big and be so ridiculously big, and then they can always pull me back. But I feel fearless as an actress, but not as a human being. I'm very much cautious and too overcautious and overthink things. But there's something about acting that gives me permission to be fearless, and I love that, and I love that I can do that in the context of an acting role, job, thing.
A great example of that is when she comes into the food fight, and I think when we did the first few takes, you were kind of at an 80, and then which were all extraordinary takes, and then you were like, let me just do one more because I think I can go further. And then she just came in, and you blew the roof off of the classroom. It was extraordinary. You just went there.
Wait, was that the one where they threw the egg
landed against
landed against the wall right there, and it kind of hit my face too.
It flew right past your head, and then splattered on you, and you just kept going.
And
you did this kind of flap with your hand as well, because it was just all too much. And then this voice just erupted out of you.
I love that when stuff like that happens, and that you don't plan at all, but I, as far as improvising, that's where I'm comfortable. Improvising is where things unexpectedly happen, and you go with it. It doesn't make me I will never stop if something crazy happens. I'll just use it and keep going. It makes me happy when unexpected things happen, like an egg getting tossed at you, and it's exciting.
We're gonna toss an egg.
Did you tell them to toss an egg at me?
No. I think Johanna just might have Might
What?
have gone for it.
We'd never do
Johanna,
Did you?
Smash. You can't hold Smash back. You cannot.
No.
No, we had a professional right next to you. It was all very safe.
Believe me, I wouldn't even have cared if it had hit me in the face. If that egg had hit me in the face,
like how you
that's what I
didn't-
mean. Like I would have loved it. I would have just
Next
brushed
movie.
it off my face, and I would have used it. It would have been fantastic.
What was in trouble there? It's like, you threw an egg at me? It's like, oh, God. No, we didn't do that. We did not throw an egg at
Not at
Allison
all. I
Janney.
wouldn't have. I would love you for that.
You did your own stunts then, I'm assuming, for this.
Oh yes, all of mine. Did I have any? I did.
I'm just curious, is there any genre of film that you haven't tackled yet that you'd love?
Well, as a
To
matter
do.
of fact, yes, and I'm going to do that this summer. I'm going to do an action adventure kind of psychological thriller thing where I play an ex-CIA operative, and I got to learn to do hand-to-hand combat and take people
Yes,
out.
Jenny. Yes.
Scoop.
That's going to be really challenging, but really fun, and hopefully I won't have egg on my face at the end of it. But I'm gonna go for it. Who gets to roll like that at 60? Like play an action adventure.
You do.
You know, I'm gonna kick it out of the.
I also want to talk about something maybe the audience didn't see on film, the mentorship program that Bert and Bertie pushed for with Amazon. Would you talk a little bit about how that turned out?
Well, to this day, now there is a mentorship program at Amazon called Troop Zero, of all things. And we
I didn't even know
talked,
that.
yeah, we talked to the execs very early on about wanting, especially for this shoot, girls, primarily girls from underprivileged areas in and around New Orleans, to come to set and visit and be introduced to all of the HODs and go and see the different areas. And specifically, yeah, you did. Yes, you spoke to them for
yes, I
quite
did.
some time out there on the Wigley Elementary lawn. And so that's something that we're really proud of, and actually there will be a legacy now at Amazon. We need to check in on it, actually, make sure it's happening. But we have been told that someone's here from Amazon. Yeah, we'll look into it. But yes, that's something that we've started with Troop Zero, and we'd love to continue doing. And for us, it was very important that it was girls primarily, but we did have boys as well, came and saw what we were doing, and actually saw women in positions of power on the film set.
And that's it. We never had that.
Thank you.
We never had that growing up. I mean, at all. We didn't even know we could be film directors. So it's important, especially at that age, for girls, when they're deciding what they want to do, that they can see you running a set. Or a lot of our head departments were women, so they would spend time with them, and they would get an idea of how they fitted into this, this family and what happens behind the camera. And I think if they see it, then they can be it. So I think and we've always done that. When we lived in London, we would have young girls to set, and we would always just try and show them what's possible. And Amazon, most of our executives were amazing women, and so they just ran with it. We didn't even have to kind of push it. They understood the importance of it. So we do as much as we can. And we also knew that one day we had 200 11-year-old girls on set for the Jamboree, which was your first day. Hello. In you go. But we, obviously you've got to keep them entertained in between takes. And so we would create teachable moments, and we would call those the female crew up, and they would say who they were, what they did, what they want to do, and what they're working towards. And the girls, you could just see them, kind of their brains kind of starting to move and ask questions, and they interacted with us on that. And I think that's 200 young people that you can maybe tell them there's something greater out there that they can do. So we have to use these moments, I think, if we can and when we can.
Yeah.
So.
I'm just curious, who were your role models?
Who were our role models, kind of like it when we were becoming filmmakers? And
Because I can't think of another female directing duo off the top of...
In terms of well-known, no, we had obviously male duos to look up to. But I don't think we even formed a duo thinking that it was even a thing. We just wanted to collaborate, and that seemed like the most logical solution. It's like, well, it's both directed. So no, we didn't have role
when we were
models.
starting in our various creative industries, but I was in independent film and commercials. I was in video games, and I think we each had a male mentor that didn't see a glass ceiling for us, just kind of like pushed us to be who we were regardless of gender. So I think there was a fearlessness instilled in us, and our dads who just saw us as kind of like children rather than girls. You know, I think we've always discussed Ramsay and Christmas, and actually Christmas being kind of just treated like a young boy or kind of like a teenage boy. And I feel like our fathers raised us in that way. So we both had that shared experience. But in terms of like female directors, I feel like we didn't have anyone really to look towards. When I was growing up, I did love Big, the movie. Watched it on loop. That and Stand By Me.
Just Penny Marshall, right?
Which is Penny Marshall, but I don't remember the conversation when I was that age about it being Penny Marshall. Not to a young girl. I didn't know that was who directed it. And the same with Point Break. As a teenager, loved Point Break. It wasn't until years later that I knew that Catherine Bigelow had directed that. So the mentors or the figures were out there, but it wasn't so much part of the popular conversation as it is now. So it's great now that those behind the camera are being seen, and seen for what gender they are, what colour they are, and that can be stories told by many different types of people that speak to many different types of people. So
Yeah, I've never seen that on any set that I worked on before, of what they gave to all the young kids they worked with to show them what's possible, who can run, I can't even remember
The world.
who can run the world. Just showing, it was such a beautiful thing to watch these girls just soak it up and watch like, oh my God, I could do, like, just their eyes open to all the possibilities. That was remarkable to see them.
And also, I've never heard of directors leaving behind a charitable legacy to empower local youth. In addition to like this being your second movie, in your spare time, it's really
We didn't have enough to do.
Did you have any role models? Who would you consider to be your mentors and role models when you were starting out?
As far as actors, I mean, Carol Burnett and Mary Tyler Moore, those were the women that I idolized and loved growing up. But my mother was a great role model for me too, because she was so active in the arts, and she had been an actress, and she had been roommates with Eileen Brennan and Rue McClanahan in New York, and just hearing her stories of being an actress kind of inspired me to want to pursue it as well. But yeah, Mary Tyler Moore and Carol Burnett, those are my idols, my role models, my inspirations.
And I wanted to ask Bert and Birdie, what appealed to you two about the script, the story of young girls going on an adventure? I can't think of another movie about young girls going on an adventure, which is shocking.
Yeah. It doesn't exist. So the films that we grew up that we loved, Goonies and Stand By Me, it was always boys, either the main group and then a girl on the side. And we read the script and we were thinking, why do we not recognize this story, but then also recognize it at the same time? And then we realized there hasn't been another film. I'm more than happy to be challenged on this, but we looked, where a group of young girls go on adventure to achieve something that's greater than themselves and succeeding. And it doesn't exist. The story isn't part of our kind of cultural heritage. So, and it's such a simple thing. It's such a minor kind of like, hold on. So we never see girls on screen working together, and that you've got to ask, what does that mean in a greater context? So for us, it was incredibly important, and I think not only because the writing is so great in the script, but that's something that you and Viola connected to, because you had just won an Oscar, and we were like, she's never going to do our film. And you were our first choice, and you said yes immediately.
Because of the message and the story, I thought it was an important one, and I I didn't want to make the mistake of thinking, oh, I won an Oscar now, I'm only going to take this, like, whatever. I just wanted to be part of telling stories that could change and inspire and be, not every time I can make that decision, but this one was a no-brainer for me.
And I love the multi-generational aspect as well. Was that important to you? Not just telling the story of, young girls on an adventure, but, the women who look at themselves in these young girls and, think about the decisions they've made in their lives that got them to this point. I think it's really a powerful, moment.
Yeah, we always, I think as it was coming together and as we were coming into prep, we really started realizing that Raylene and Massey were like a reflection or a mirror image of what Hell No and Christmas could become or be. And actually, there's that thing of we do, I feel like, as women and girls growing up, we do have these really strong connections with the girls we grow up with. And often that ruptures, and often it's to do with a boy or to do with pubescent teenage years and angst. And there's something beautiful about not revealing the whole of that backstory and not really needing to, because it just exists in the moments between you and Viola so beautifully and powerfully. And actually that there was a kind of a coming back together. I think it's one of my favorite moments. When she says,
It was like the first moment I had to film, you mean?
that one.
That one.
Yes, that
was
one.
so daunting. That was like the last moment between Viola and I,
Yes.
the very first moment I had to film. And it was like, holy shit, I got to get a whole history together
Whole
here.
history, yes.
It was terrifying. I'm so glad it came across.
But sometimes there is a kind of like a potent energy to the uncertainty that you both felt, and that kind of like an awkwardness between friends who hadn't connected and still were inspired by each other. Like all of that, I don't know, the reality of like just being thrown into it somehow came across. All of that uncertainty. It was just beautifully. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, God.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
And it was hot in that tent too.
Yeah, it was.
The sweat was real.
Yeah, it was. That was extraordinary.
There's so much subtext in that moment. Did you and Viola discuss what the backstory?
Not a
might be?
lot. A lot of a little bit. We knew what had to be there, and I think we came to that moment in our own way. She was, doesn't matter. But in my home backstory had nothing to do with the script. Everything to do. Sometimes as an actor, you got to bring whatever. And if I told you who she was to me in that moment, it wouldn't have. Whatever, but it made me feel connected to her, and had nothing to do with what was on the page. But I needed to bring a connection that I knew exactly who she was to me, and it wasn't Raylene, it was somebody else, but it worked for the scene. Does that make sense? Okay.
And I think what's great is this doesn't always happen, but you wanted to talk about backstory, and I think there was that day where we Skyped, and you were like, I'm caught on this one thing, and we were like, oh, this is what we thought, and it just kind of opened up a hole, and then you went on another journey.
Yeah,
and
I just wanted to hear what you thought of it, and backstory doesn't always matter to me, because I bring my own backstory, but for some reason I wanted to know what you.
It wasn't written out in the script per se,
yeah.
and that's what was interesting in that particular moment, working with you and the backstory and something you needed to bring to it to make it real for you. And Viola actually just wanted to exist in her own, like an island. She's like, I know my thing, and I need to keep it, almost like as a process to keep it to myself, because she wouldn't know this thing about, Massey. And so actually, so interesting that you get that electricity between two actors who are working in quite different ways in terms of what's processing. That's fascinating. Yeah, electric.
Terrifying.
Also.
I'm curious, how would you describe your directing style?
Brilliant.
Agreed.
So good.
Incredibly collaborative, and no matter what happens, is just always to do it with a smile on your face. Like, you know, no matter what happens, you can deal with it. But as long as you communicate, and we always have to be on the same page. We do a lot of prep so that by the time we're on set, Allison could ask us both the same question, she'll get the same answers.
And I tried to see if there were cracks.
They tested us.
But
you
they
test
were,
that?
yeah, I did.
Okay.
But you guys were good because they would do like one day, Bert would direct, and Birdie would be in charge of whatever else you do when you're not directing or whatever. And then the next day, Bert, who did I just say? It doesn't matter. The other one would direct.
Just say me.
So they would switch off, and they had just a wonderful, and they were seamless, and I didn't feel like they definitely have the same, their voices is united, and it felt very natural to work with them like that.
And we have to be, because if we're not, then like our whole job is to create a safe space for you, so that if there's anything going on between us, then you'll feel that, and it'll come into that, and it'll affect your kind of focus and your ability to be in the moment. So our job happens before, so that we can give you that gift and play essentially on the day. So that's the whole thing we work towards.
You did
It's
it beautifully.
you.
It really was a pleasure working.
You never would like play good cop, bad cop, in other words. Like,
Good cop, we've been told.
it's just funny because, like, you know, we've all heard stories about legendary male directors who sort of played psychological mind games with their cast, which is an interesting concept.
Really? Wow, yeah.
Well, it works for some people, but we just hug them to death. So yeah, no, you know, I don't. That's just not our style. So you know, we'd rather create the safe space, and that way we find the emotion or, you know, the journey. But whatever works for everyone else. No comment.
What stood out to you as most unique about their directing style? Because you've worked with so many directors over the years.
I think it's just their incredible positivity and enthusiasm in spite of whatever challenges came, and there were many. They just had great attitudes. I never saw them get angry or it was just everything was an opportunity to you know, thank you. Let's find the answer to this problem, and nothing. It wasn't even a problem. It was just that was kind of great to be around. That energy made me gave me hope. It gave me strength to get through wearing a wig and the heat and whatever. I wanted to do it for them because they were just so thrilled and filled with joy. I don't know. I'm gonna on wall.
Yeah.
Really, no, but they are. They're just a really. That's that kind of energy. I haven't worked with a lot of directors who have.
Well, it's the best job in the world, isn't it? So why are you going to come to set grumpy? I mean, it would be I just don't understand, like the anger that we haven't been on many. That's the thing as a director, you don't get to go on that many sets and visit and experience other people's directing styles. But what a privilege to kind of work with these amazing actors and director of photography and writer, and every day is a joy. And if it's not, make it a joy. I think that's just our attitude. Yeah.
I also love the role that science plays in this movie, yet another unique aspect of the script. You know, usually when there's a story about girls, they're driven by, you know, some kind of romantic destiny as opposed to a fascination with science. So why did that resonate with you?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I was particularly fascinated. I think we all go through a kind of 11-year-old phase where we just go, oh my God, the universe is infinite. What does that mean? And like, if I point a telescope at the sky, will I see the back of my head eventually? Like, if that telescope is... So there was that kind of like, and just, you know, Lucy's writing and the kind of, same with Beast, it's like a 9-year-old having an existential crisis. And there was something deep down, like, in childhood that related, I related to that very much. And kind of, I think we're geeks a little bit. I think we, you know, worked in video games, and it was all about understanding like as much as I could about every cell and pixel of that. And I think when we kind of switched over to film, for me, it was about understanding the camera and what that actually does in the process, and the color space of it all, and so I think there's a kind of a techie geekiness to us, and so Christmas is that version in space, but it's only really you asking that question now that's making me think about that answer, bizarrely.
I think we also grew up in a time that it was just post all of that happening, so it was kind of relevant as well. It was in the ether, just in our first memories. Yeah. So I think that also on some base level, we've lost touch with the incredible accomplishments that man made, back then. Someone agreed that Carl Sagan could send a record of humanity out into the ether, and it's still going. Like, it is still going. It's the furthest man-made object from Earth, and it's still going, and it's still sending back signals. That's kind of incredible. And on there is like the sound of a baby crying and people kissing and pygmies chanting, and like, who agreed to that? Just, it's wonderful. So yeah, it's fascinating. The story behind it, the emotion of the golden record also is fascinating.
And actually, what we're getting messages from not only friends with kids and girls who have been watching this, but also on social media. Just a friend of mine said, "Oh, so Ava woke up the day after watching Troop Zero and said, 'How many Milky Ways are there?'" Like, that was the first thing out of her head. And another set of friends, she now wants to go to the Griffith Observatory, and they went and looked. There's a day every month where all these kind of astrologers kind of bring out their telescopes and let kids look through them, like up at Saturn and everything. And they were like, we want to go. So it was actually seeing Troop Zero and seeing that possibility. And, space is, the majority of the movie is down on Earth, and it's with Troop Zero, and it's finding your aliens that are around you rather than looking into space. But that beginning of the film and the end of the film resonates so powerfully with young girls. That's been one of the most wonderful messages to hear. There's a few messages that we're getting about girls responding to. They're talking about bullying at home much more openly. They're talking about space. They're talking about finding people who celebrate their uniqueness. It's happening, it's working, and that's all we ever wished and hoped for Troop Zero. So that's amazing. I forgot the question as well.
On a final note, I just wanted to ask what you look for in stories. I mean, this is such a beautiful story of, misfit girls, and the idea of a misfit and being an outsider seems to be a theme in your work, and you've also created so many like iconic sort of misfit characters throughout your film and TV work. I just wanted to explore that theme for a bit.
Well, for us, it's always the theme of outsider or other. I think we grew up feeling different to other girls. I mean, we bonded over this. I was 5'11". It's really hard growing up being really tall, Bigfoot, big girl, how's the weather up there? Like, that stuff happens, let alone even trying to find boyfriends, like, doesn't happen.
Never has happened for me.
Yeah, exactly. So I think in all of our work, no matter what the genre is, Birdie and I always respond to a character that is truly an outsider in every way. And then that doesn't matter what the rest of the story is. Like, I think that's the thing we relate to, and that we can take it and make it our own.
Do you still feel like Outsiders being the only female directing duo in Hollywood?
Hey,
what is that like?
We've been training for this all our lives. Yeah, absolutely. And this, it is changing, and we have to acknowledge that. And we will see it years before it ends up on screen. And the scripts we're seeing now are, the women are so complex, so wonderfully complex, and there's a strength to it. And even today, we had a meeting where the next 3 Marvel TV series that come out and that are shooting at the moment, 2 of them are directed by women, and they're like $150 million budgets. That's just going to become common. Black Widow is directed by a woman. It is happening. I just think the public see it later than what we do. But I think the stories are changing, which is exciting.
Are you all very hopeful for the immediate future of Hollywood?
Yeah.
Yes, hopeful, but also we can't rest on our laurels as Hollywood. I remember thinking this when, so Troop Zero, actually was it this weekend? This weekend just gone was when Troop Zero was first shown to the world, the closing night of Sundance Film Festival. It was pretty epic. And I remember we were at the kind of the filmmakers brunch at the beginning of Sundance, and it was something like 50% female in that room. And everyone was like, hooray, hooray. But at the same time, we were like, but let's not pat ourselves on the back yet, because we still need to keep fighting the fight and banging the drum and kind of being loud about this until it's the norm. And it's not quite yet the norm. So let's make sure we push it into the realms of normal, that women's voices and people of colour's voices are being, recognised and pushed out there, because it can very easily trickle back. It's easy. There's a lot of male directors out there, and not so many females that are being pushed forward. So, I think we just keep on with it, at least for another 5 years, and then maybe we can be a bit quieter and just get on with working.
That was a beautiful note to end on. Thank you, Bert and Birdie and Allison, for your time this evening.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you, guys. Thank you all for coming.